Welcome to Indy's Real Estate Gurus. I'm Rick Rittman, your hardworking mortgage guy, and I've been in real estate and mortgages for over 34 years. I've helped over 5,300 folks finance their homes. My team and I believe in custom tailored loans, not the one-size-fits-all approach. We believe there is a right mortgage for you, and we believe we are the team to deliver it.
And I'm Ian Arnold, part of Rick's hardworking mortgage team. I've been in the financial industry for 15 years, helping customers get better credit, just get the best interest rates out there. I also have a passion in helping you secure your overall real estate dreams. And if you're anything like me, pay your home off even faster.
Ian likes to pay his home off quick. And if you have any real estate questions or mortgage questions, please go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com. You can look up our information there, or you can give us a call at 317-672-1938. That's 317-672-1938. And today we have another phenomenal guru real estate agent, Wendy Gillespie.
Yes.
Right? It's that ending is so easy to, because it's pie, but it's not, you don't say.
It is not. It's Gillespie, like Dizzy Gillespie.
That's what I figured. Yes.
Right. Unfortunately, a lot of younger people don't.
Yeah, I guess not. And that's your dad?
Yeah, not quite. Boy, I wish. No talent here.
And you're with FC Tucker.
I am.
Which is a small real estate company we have here in Indiana.
Largest one in the state.
Yeah.
And so we are a great company, and I've been with them from the beginning. And when I got into real estate, decided to get into real estate, I'd been in marketing for 13 years. So I just drove around and saw who had the most signs.
Oh, really? That's how you did it?
That's how I decided on FC Tucker.
Okay, so you're in marketing, but let's talk more about before real estate. Like, where did you grow up? You know, what did you do? Where'd you go to school? You know, just kind of your story before real estate.
Well, I get teased at all the things that I've done in my past. So we moved a lot when I was growing up. So I've lived in 7 states.
Wow.
Was born in Iowa, and then did most of my growing up in Southern California. Then we did a year in Boise, Idaho, 3 years in Flagstaff, Arizona, and then my folks decided they wanted to move back home to rural Iowa, which was a huge culture shock for me. But it was great, a lot of fun. So lived in Iowa, farmed for 10 years. So that was an experience. I was a hog farmer. Had my own farrow to finish hog operation. Then, unfortunately, when I was single, again, didn't want snow anymore. So my children and I moved to Arkansas, loved Arkansas, and had very dear friends who then introduced me to her brother-in-law, who happened to live in Indiana. So then I came to Indiana. And while I was in Arkansas, I was a legal secretary, and so did that. Came to Indiana and had initially gotten some job offers from law firms in Indianapolis, and then saw, I forget, I don't think we had LinkedIn back then, but saw an advertising for somebody for a medical device company right in Noblesville. And at the time I lived in Noblesville. And so got on with them, and it was family owned. It was a great company. And then they sold, still stayed there, and then they sold again. And they had, the company that bought them already had a sales and marketing department in Baltimore. And my kids were here. I'd moved my parents here from Iowa. I wasn't going to Baltimore.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, time to find a new job. And my husband said, well, we're all done paying for college, so just do what you want to do, which was terrifying. I have a degree in psychology with an emphasis in counseling, but in Indiana, you have to have your master's. So my first thought was, well, I'll go get my master's. And then I thought, do I really want to do that? And having bought a lot of homes and sold homes in my adult life, I always enjoyed real estate. Thought about doing it one time when I was a single parent, and all commission as a single parent's not a real good idea. So didn't do it then, and decided I would jump in, and that's how I got into real estate 10 years ago, actually this month.
Well, it sounds like your education is absolutely perfect for being a real estate agent,
yes.
Is it not?
Yes. The psychology and the counseling has worked immensely.
Yeah, I would think counseling would be huge.
Yes.
Because you're not really, I don't think real estate agents, I don't think of them as salespeople today as much as really counseling and making, people can look up all the information. You just really have to really help them get to the right
Right.
choices.
Through the process, I always look at myself as their biggest advocate. That's why I always think, and I tell folks, even if I have somebody that decides they're going to do a for sale by owner, I think I can do this by myself. It's great. I always say there should actually be one realtor involved in the transaction, and remember, if they're working for somebody else, they're not advocating for you. So it's great that everybody has their own, because that's really what we do: help you through the process, help you kind of do the pros and cons. A lot of times, if you're a seller and you get multiple offers, which in the past 3 years happens all the time, and still even in this market, you get multiple offers. A lot of people think, oh, it's the highest price. There's so much more to an offer than just the price. And so you have to, it's what kind of financing and what are the terms and are you getting any post-closing possession and lots of things that come into it. So we help kind of navigate through that process.
Right. Yeah, you brought up for sale by owner, and I just think that it's so important for somebody to work with a real estate agent because, first of all, I don't believe it costs any money, because that agent is going to help you, guide you through it. And generally, if you're the seller, you're going to get more money because of it.
Yes.
And sometimes significantly. As a buyer, you need that person helping you through. And then how much harder is it to negotiate directly with somebody on the inspection responses? And
exactly,
it's just so valuable to have that real estate agent.
Statistically, for a seller, statistics show that you actually get a higher price in a shorter amount of time. And again, that has to do with it too, because the longer that you have the home on the market, the more you're not moving to where you want to move. Because most of the time you're selling in order to buy somewhere else, either out of state or, a move up or a move down. And so the longer that you're on, the harder it is to find that next place. And then again, there's inspection responses, which this year have come back into play. We kind of went away with that for a while. I've dealt with some new agents the past 6 months that, started in 2020 and had actually never written an inspection response ever. So they'd never negotiated that. So having somebody that helps you with that. And to me, one of the big things a realtor does is that we remove the emotion out of the transaction. And sometimes we have to remind our buyers and our sellers, if a seller gets a really low offer, I'm there. Don't take offense to it. Any offer's a good offer. I always say that that's an offer is the beginning of a conversation.
Right.
And some people just like to talk longer than other people do. So we just remove the emotion from the transaction and remind everybody that this really is a business transaction and should be handled that way.
Yeah, it's one of the most important things an agent does, in my opinion, is they're that party who takes the emotion out.
Yeah.
If the agent is putting emotion in, there's a problem because everything blows up.
Yeah, it is not good for the transaction, and usually it takes a lot longer and it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be like if you're driving your car and you get mad and then the person in the passenger seat also is screaming and yelling and mad. Now you're going to have road rage, right?
The emotion just escalates.
Yeah. Could you imagine a driver's ed teacher doing that? I don't know.
Make for some interesting classes.
Yeah, that's the way my guy was. No.
There you go.
So did you start with Tucker, or how did you come around to be at Tucker?
I did. And like I said, when I decided to get into real estate, I just drove around and saw who had the most signs. And there was this big T. I'm not from here, so Tucker wasn't a household name for me that, everybody talked to Tucker. But I saw all these T's. And I was like, okay, well, I think that's who I want to be. I happened to know a Tucker agent, so I went to her and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And she was like, oh my gosh, you'd be really good at that. I took that as a compliment. I'm hoping that
she was right.
So it's been very good. So and then just kind of worked towards it. I really didn't have. They always talk about your sphere of influence. I really didn't have that. I'm an extrovert, but my husband's an introvert. So when we moved here, I didn't know anybody. My kids were older, so I didn't meet people at baseball games or anything like that. So the only sphere I had were people that I had used to work with. And when I was done at that company, I jumped both feet and arms into real estate. I didn't have another income. I just jumped in. And so I just kept making connections with people that I worked with, and they have been wonderful. In fact, actually, I've been in real estate and away from that job for 10 years. And last Thursday, I had 4 meetings with clients. I showed a house, did an inspection, did a listing presentation. I'm trying to think what the 4th one was. And all of them, I thought it was funny, were connected to my previous job 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I just have continued to market that. And I've been blessed with great clients that continue to refer me to other people. And so it's been great.
So we wanted to help you out a little bit. So I don't want you just to worry about that job as trying to get people in there. So if somebody's listening right now and they want to contact you about buying or selling a home, how will they get a hold of you?
So the easiest way is text or call me at 317-698-0229. I've always got my phone with me. You can ask my adult children, my grandchildren, my husband, or email me at wendygg@talktotucker.com, and that's TALKTOTUCKER.com.
Perfect. And that number again is 317-698-0229.
That's it.
So 317-698-0229.
Phone or
I'm
text.
repeating that a couple times because the first time I messed it up. That's why people don't want me reading their phone number. I blame it on my dyslexia. And if to get a hold of Ian or I, go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com, or you can call 317-672-1938. That's 317-672-1938. And thank you for listening to Indy's Real Estate Gurus, the gurus we interview. Share valuable insights. They share their strengths, reveal their strengths, their personalities, and how they'll work for you. While we hardworking mortgage guys secure your best mortgage, real estate gurus work hard too. They avoid problems the amateurs don't see. They listen and they find unrealized opportunities. If you're buying or selling a home, a real estate guru is a valuable asset. If you're even thinking of buying or selling a home, keep listening and definitely call one of Indy's real estate gurus.
All right, so let's take a little break about talking about you and your business.
You're not going to like this.
I know. Let's find out a little bit more about you. So if I got to take away your phone, you cannot work, your kids cannot contact you. No, just playing. They can still contact you. But but what do you do for fun?
So for fun, I love to travel. And if I can go somewhere, I'm gonna go. And my grandkids are usually with me. So I enjoy, my kids are great, although they say they get ignored now that they have children. But I started a thing when my oldest grandchildren turned 13, and for their 13th birthday, they get to pick anywhere they want to go in the continental United States. I had to put those parameters on it because somebody wanted to go to Paris, and it was like, yeah, that's not going to work. And so they get to pick anywhere they want to go. And so then we go on a trip, just the two of us. And first one was San Francisco and Yosemite. Then I had one pick New York City, had the other one pick New Orleans. I just did last year, number 4 picked the Universal parks. So we did 5 days of Universal and Disney. Nana was exhausted, but it was a fun time.
Probably. It's expensive.
Thank goodness for real estate. Yeah. And then the next one turns 13 in September, and so he has chosen Southern California. So we're going to go do Universal Studios, tour Warner Brothers Studios, do the Walk of Fame, go to the beach, go to Santa Monica Pier. We haven't figured everything we're doing, and then after that, I'll have one more. So then after the 13th birthday trip, then it's kind of like, okay, where else do you want to go? So I've done trips to Savannah, Georgia with them. Last year, I took the oldest 3. We did Arizona and then drove up into Utah, did Bryce Canyon, all the national parks up there, Grand Canyon, Sedona. So I love to travel. I travel with friends. I'll travel with whoever wants to go somewhere.
Now, is your husband a traveler?
He is not. So
I was getting the feeling that was the case because you never said him.
So we used to travel a lot. He's had some medical issues, so he doesn't travel anymore. So, but it's always like, so where are you going next? Sometimes I think he wants to just get me out of the house, but I think he just knows how much I enjoy it.
So where is your favorite place to go? What?
That's really hard since I've lived so many places and we traveled a lot in the United States. I really don't have a favorite place. There's a lot of places I like to go. There's a lot of places I'd like to go again. But I really don't. Every place has its own, whether it's a city or you know, a little bit more remote. When I took the oldest three to Arizona and Utah last year, we spent 3 nights in a covered wagon.
Oh, wow.
That was fun.
How big a covered wagon?
It was pretty big. It had like 2 sets of bunk beds really close and then a king size bed. The best part was that the only way that they could get internet was to go walk about a quarter of a mile to the owner's cabin and sit out on the front porch. And so that was pretty fun having teenagers that didn't have access to
Well, what about you? No access to the internet.
So I make sure that I have very good coverage whenever I leave. Actually, this year, another agent and I just formed Gillespie and Caldwell Realty Group. So Leanna Caldwell and I work really good together and treat our clients the same, and we just have the same ethics. And so we join together. And so Leanna's always there to help me out, and I'm there to help her out when one of us is leaving.
Yeah. I think that's vital when you're a real estate agent. It really, because you need your time away.
You do, but you have to, we don't have a downtime. I was, last night at 3 a.m. I was still working on an offer. And so to really go, okay, if you're a sole agent and you don't have the support of other agents, which is one of the reasons why it helps to be with a great brokerage, because you'll have, even if you're not on, if you don't have a team, you still have other great agents around you. But, when you leave, it is good to get away, but you got to make sure you're covered, because you never, all of a sudden, I think there's a little saying that if you want to grow your business, just plan a vacation.
Yeah,
because
that is true.
That's when it's going to, all of a sudden, everybody wants to buy a house then.
Yeah.
So let me ask this. I know you got into real estate a little later. Mm-hmm. So do any of your kids have the itch?
So not really. Although I took a granddaughter out to dinner last night for her birthday, and we were talking, and she's going to be a senior, and she's doing the college tours. And she hasn't won. Her siblings kind of know what they want to do. She hasn't quite decided on that. And then she said, and maybe real estate. And I was like, oh. So, and I said, well, there's, a lot of people that start early and have fantastic. And so I'm going to actually get her to speak with a couple other agents that started at an earlier age than I did, and that have stayed in it and enjoyed. And
yeah, we had an agent on. Her and her husband were both agents. They both came on. She started in real estate at 18,
yeah,
and he started at 21. We've had people on who started in real estate when they were in college.
Yeah,
so it's definitely possible. And there's the age of the average real estate agent is pretty high, so there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity, in my opinion.
And it has changed. Before, years and years and years ago, it was always, kind of the middle-aged woman. Because, some people, it wasn't a real job. and they liked to see houses. And so that was and there wasn't even a lot of men that were in it. It was looked as more of a female career. And then that has changed a lot. And I think that people, first of all, realize the importance of it, that the home is usually a person's largest investment until they buy their next one that's more. And so we've actually put more, it's not just, it's got a cute kitchen, or it's that it is an investment. And so you have to look at it that way. It is more of a business transaction. You've got to fall in love with the home. I always tell my clients that you'll know it when you walk in. You've got to feel like this is home, because every day you're out there fighting the good fight. And you need a place that when you close that door, you feel like this is your place and you can be yourself and nobody can bother you. And so that's what you need to feel it on a house. And I've had clients that have looked at homes for 2 years, a little over 2 years. And I hate to bother you. No. We'll find the right one. It'll come along. And sure enough, it comes along.
Yeah, we had an agent on, and I thought it was a brilliant thing, and you may do it the same thing, but she said she will avoid putting an offer in until that person sells her on why they want to be in that home.
I usually just,
You can tell.
I can feel it. I had one that was, and this was several years ago, and it was a couple, and we'd been looking at houses, and they were coming from out of town, and at first they wanted a large lot, and then they were looking at townhouses, and we were kind of all over the place, and I'd found one that was a for sale by owner. And so we set up a time. We were looking at like 3 houses that day. They'd come into town, and so we go to look at this one, and I knew walking in this was their house. I just knew it walking in. We opened the door and it was like, oh my gosh, we're here. And I'm really good at reading people. Could not read him at all. He just had this very stellar face, and I could not read him at all. I'm thinking, and very cordial, and yeah, very nice, very nice. And I could read her. I could tell she was feeling it, but couldn't. And I thought, maybe I've got this wrong. I thought I was so good at this, but I've completely called this wrong. We thanked him. We left. We drove to the separate cars. We drove to the next property. I'm feeling kind of down because I thought that was it. And I just gotten out of the car. I look in my rearview mirror, and he's getting out, but she's not. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay. So I get out, and he goes, we don't even need to see this one. Let's go write the offer. It was like, okay, he did feel it. So I don't know. I can just kind of feel. And then I have other ones where I can tell that they're kind of trying to talk themselves into it. It has everything. It checks off all the boxes. And I'll be like, no, this isn't it. Well, but it has everything. I said, yeah, you're not feeling it. You got to feel it.
Right.
So my husband kind of jokes that sometimes I talk more people out of houses than I do talking them into it.
It is shocking when you actually go, oh no, this is not the right one. They look at you strangely for 5 seconds. They're like,
yeah.
What do you mean? And then you'll usually list a few points, and this is the reasons. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, yeah. But it is funny. I get a lot of looks on like, why? But I think this is it. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay, so we've learned one of your superpowers. That's reading people.
There you go.
But what are your other superpowers?
I'm a great negotiator. So probably with having the children that I have and having great grandkids, I've learned to negotiate really well.
For everything.
So, yeah. And that was probably in the past 3 years that I kind of missed the most with the way that the market was, is that there was no negotiating. I mean, you put in an offer and there was already 18 offers, so you put in your highest and your best. When you did a home inspection, I always told my folks, you have to do a home inspection. Even if you're not going to ask for anything, you have to you've got to know what you're going into. But there was no negotiating on that. You either were doing an as is, or you were going in and, you're not going to ask for any single item under $6,000, something, but there was just no negotiating. And so I've enjoyed it now that we're getting back into negotiating again.
And I think it's a lot better, maybe not for the seller, but it certainly is a lot better for the buyer.
It is. It is.
A home inspection, I don't think I could have bought a home during that time because there are a lot of things that made it hard being in the industry for so long.
Yeah.
But that would probably be the one for me that would just stop me from being able to do it. I guess the 6,000, I'd be okay with that, but not having an inspection, I would not be okay with.
I have told clients, I have one, no, we'll just forgo it. And I said, if you forgo the inspection, you're going to probably have to get another realtor, because I just cannot in good conscience have you buy this house without even knowing anything. And so many times there's not much, or there's just minor things. But that one time I had done a transaction before the craziness, and we did the fireplace inspection, and there was like $12,000. You couldn't tell. It looked fine.
Right.
In fact, I think the reason that we had it was because the general home inspector saw up on the roof, the chimney, there was something with a brick. So he said, you should probably have somebody come take a look. I said, okay. From now on, every time I have a wood burning fireplace, we get a fireplace inspection. And they got in there. They even put the yellow tape up. Do not use this fireplace. It's dangerous. The transaction went through. The seller still wanted to sell the house. The buyer still wanted to buy the house. They split the cost. So finding something large in an inspection doesn't necessarily mean that the deal's going down.
Right.
So you can work through it, but you work through that with a you know what's going on and you know what's going
Right.
to come, whether you're going to fix it later or the seller's going to fix it, or it's like, okay, it's not the code, but I'm fine with
Yeah,
it.
it's not a surprise.
So yeah, but at least you take out that element of surprise.
Now, I spent 11 years with a new home builder, and even a new home you should have inspected, because I don't care. In my builder, the builder I worked with was considered a very good builder.
Yes.
Yet there were things that were missed at times.
I always tell my folks that do new construction, you still have to have an independent home inspector come look through that. And there'll be people, oh, it's a new house, they shouldn't find anything. Yeah, they probably will, especially in the past 4 years where they're building homes so fast. And it's not because, and I say, if you find something, that doesn't mean that the builder is a bad builder.
Right.
It's kind of, how does the builder deal with it? And every single time we've done that, we have found things. And the builders that I've been blessed to work with have, 2 weeks later, everything's fixed.
I mean, look at a normal job. So say if you go to the office or whatnot, and you do that same job every single day, every single month. So you make mistakes because you're not thinking of something.
Right.
Now, these guys are building homes. They do the same exact thing. They can make mistakes too. Just maybe they just had a bad day, wasn't thinking. Right. Life's going crazy on one end. They get to work, they forget, whatever. And guess what? Now that falls on you as the homeowner.
Yes. Yeah. I had one, and it was new construction, and we went in, and there was a wall that was like visibly at an angle. In fact, the tile down on below at one point, there was like, a half-inch tile, and towards the other one there was like a 1/4-inch tile.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So it was visible. How did that happen? You know what? The framers came in. They were working fast. This was in end of 2020, and they were working fast. They get it framed. It was crooked. Drywaller goes in. He does it. He probably doing it so fast he didn't. Tyler goes in. By now they are so far down that it's like he's everybody else passed it.
Yeah.
I can tell I'm cutting these tiles differently, but it was okay with everybody else because we've gone through all those checks, and the builder fixed it.
Yeah.
So, the house is still a great house,
Yeah.
and the builder's still a good builder.
Those things happen. One of the builder I was with, the people moved into the house. It started to smell. The sewer lateral never got hooked up. It was all going into the crawl.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's just
happens.
something that happens. Now, we put them up in a hotel. They dug everything out. They fixed it all.
Right.
But it's still, if an inspector had been there and that had been inspected, that would have never happened. Right. And sometimes it's minor stuff. Sometimes it's this little thing in the fireplace they forgot.
Yeah.
But it's worth having. I think in
Always.
any case, it's worth having.
Yeah. It's never money wasted. You either have a good feeling, great, this house is wonderful, and some people go, oh, we found it, even if the deal doesn't go through, then I've wasted that inspection money. No, you didn't. That was good money. If you had to if you did walk away from a transaction because of an inspection, that was probably the best money you've ever spent.
Absolutely.
So,
See, the craziest thing is Rick and I both came from the car industry, is people would take a used car to go get inspected. You're spending what, 15, 20, maybe more, depends on the price of the car. Okay. Now you're going to buy a home for 200 to 400 to whatever,
More.
and you're not going to spend money to get an inspection? Mm-hmm. You're crazy.
yeah, you have to. Whether or not you're going to ask for anything or not, you've got to know what you're going into. You've got to have your eyes wide open, because, and another thing, it's kind of like with radon. You get people that'll go, oh, I don't believe in radon. Okay. However, if you're a buyer and you get a radon test and we find that the levels are 4 or above, 99% of the time, the seller's going to make that repair. Because if they don't, they have to redo their seller's disclosure to now disclose that there is radon. If you are a buyer and you don't test for radon, which costs, a couple $100, then when you go to sell it, 9 times out of 10, your buyer is going to test for it. And now you're going to spend $1,800 to $2,400 to mitigate that radon. Yep. So that's one of the things. It's like, even if you don't believe on it, now's a good time to test for it.
Yep. And if somebody's wanting to get with you about buying or selling a home, and with all of the knowledge that you have and the passion you have in protecting your clients, how will they get a hold of you?
Easiest one is to give me a call or text me at 317-698-0229, or shoot me an email at wendyg@talktotucker.com. That's WENDYG at talktotucker.com, TALKTOTUCKER.com.
And to get a hold of Ian or I, go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com, or you can call us at 317-672-1938. That's 317-672-1938.
And now we'll get into the question of the week. And the question of the week is sponsored by, hey, Rick and I, the Hardworking Mortgage Guys, where we believe in helping and supporting you and your realtor by sending constant updates to the loan process. We don't like living in a black hole, so we do not allow it for you. All right, so here's a tough question. What was your first car?
So my first car was, I'm old, so it's been a while. Trying to think if Earl was my first car or my favorite car. I think he was my first car. A 1963 Ford Galaxy 500. He was light blue. It was the best car. It had a bench seat. I lived in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we would ride five in. We didn't have to wear seatbelts back then, but we would ride five in the front seat. And one evening, I got pulled over by a police officer because I didn't have my lights on and it was dark, but I had really good night vision. And so I see that the lights come on and I said, somebody get in the back seat. Well, all four of my friends jumped in the back. So by the time he pulls me over, I am sitting in the front seat by myself with three friends in the back. And he came up and I didn't get a ticket. However, he did look in the back and say, ladies, why don't we just limit it to three in the front? So five in the front seat. But his name was Earl, 63 Ford Galaxy 500. And I am constantly on the lookout for another one.
I was going to say, that's a great car.
Oh my gosh, it was an awesome.
And you remember what size motor it had?
No.
What color was it?
It was light blue.
Light blue.
So sometimes the gas gauge didn't work. And so we would there was a lot of gas stations in Flagstaff, Arizona. So then we'd run out of gas and then we'd coast into a gas station. And I don't know if all of the cars at the time were like this or not, but I had a friend who thought it was really funny that you could take the key out as the car, you could turn it off and pull the key out as the car was driving down the road. And she thought that was funny. So she would do that a couple of times, but a lot of good memories
I'll bet.
in that car.
Yeah, that's a great car.
It was an awesome car.
Yeah.
I watch
you can find one.
Meekum auction all the time looking for a 63 Ford Galaxy 500.
I'm surprised you haven't found one because there's quite a few.
I'm pretty particular.
Oh, okay.
So, and it has to be, and I can't remember. There was something else on the, when I see it, it's oh my gosh, there it is. We did see one time, but it was I don't know, $25,000, $30,000. I want one, but not that bad.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I don't know if you've been watching lately, but cars have gone way up in value.
Yeah, way up.
Especially the old cars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And the older I get, the more of a classic that gets, so then the price keeps going up. It's
less and less of them become out there.
Yes.
Well, the problem, I mean, I have the same issue. I'm in the lower end of the baby boomers. Okay. So all of the baby boomers ahead of me have already bought everything and they've raised the price so ridiculous where I should have done this 10, 15 years ago before they all got into it. Yeah. But they're the ones with all the money.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah. Just wait a little while. They're all dying off, and then they'll be
my
generation won't care, and
true.
Then the price would plummet.
That's true. Yeah, the next generation is kind of no, I don't need the old stuff.
That is my worry. Although I do a lot of the Meekum auctions, and they have a lot of young people there.
Yeah.
The two things I've noticed, and I've been doing them for years, is that there's a lot more young people and there's a lot more women there than there used to be. Used to be almost entirely old men.
Yeah. Well, now it's so, cars, I tell my kids and my grandkids this, it used to be when guys would be working on their pickups, then we would all sit there and you'd be sitting, the hood would be up and you'd be sitting there and you'd have your feet inside the engine well. And now it's all sealed up. I don't even know, nobody can change their own oil. Nobody can. You got to take it in. They put it up to the computer thing where it used to be everybody did their own and you sit there. And...
Yeah. Ian used to run a shop, so he knows. Yes. But when I had a BMW and I was having brake noise, right? So I thought, maybe I need to check my brake fluid, all that. I couldn't even find the reservoir because it's not where it always was because they're no longer mechanical.
No. I had to call. I actually just recently got an all-electric vehicle, and I had to actually call and say, do I have to schedule an oil change at some point? And they were no. And I was
Nor do you have to put gas in. I've seen I've seen videos of people trying to put gas in an electric car. You don't have to do that either.
The car I had before was a Chevy Volt, so I plugged it in and I put gas in it. And when I was busy one day after I'd had this car for about 2 weeks, and I ran to Sam's Club and I did some shopping, and my usual brain of thought is after I get done, then check my gas gauge if I need gas, and I go get gas. And so I sat there and I looked at it, and I could see how many electric miles I had left, which I used to be able to see in my Volts, but I couldn't see how many. And I was looking all over and I was getting frustrated. Ugh, I hate new cars. You don't know where anything is. I can't see how many gas miles. Where's my gas gauge? And then it hit me that I don't have a gas gauge. Luckily, I had not pulled up. I was just in the regular parking lot. So
that would be embarrassing.
Yeah, I did not pull up, and so I guess I shouldn't have told that story.
It is the funniest thing is people buying newer cars. A lot of them, especially higher end cars, don't have dipsticks. The only way to measure it is by a computer or by the front screen where your radio is.
They don't even have dipsticks anymore. Okay.
So you'll get an old guy coming in or older.
There you go.
Coming in with their daughter or something,
He's
and they'll be looking.
Mean.
Yep, I am. I tell it like it is. So, but they'll be helping their daughter or son or whatnot. And be like, let me do an inspection really quick before you buy this car. And they'll look at it and they're like, where's the dipstick? Sir, this car doesn't have a dipstick. What do you mean it doesn't have a dipstick? They don't make dipsticks for these cars anymore.
We had a similar problem in 2020, 2021, beginning of 2022, because I would be working with like a first-time home buyer who, again, we were in the market where there was a multiple offer situation. You had to go in with your highest and your best. It usually included an appraisal gap protection, either as is or some wording regarding the inspection. And in the beginning, we would have parents come that would be like, well, if you want to get it for $300, you need to put in an offer at about $280. And it would be like, that's not going to work. In fact, if it's listed at $300, we're probably going to go in at $310, $320. And it was difficult at the time. Or inspection, there's a broken seal on that window, which, for 3 years, a broken seal was nothing. And a few months ago when I'd gotten an inspection report, and all of a sudden, that broken seal, they needed that window fixed. I was like, a couple years ago, that was fine, and now it's not anymore. So,
I mean, it'd be the same thing here later when we go, when I put your house on the market, it might take 2 or 3 months for it to sell. And the people are like, what are you talking about? It only takes 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. I had to remind myself. I'd had one, and it had been on for about a week and a half just recently, and we hadn't gotten an offer. And inside, I was just torn up. I was just like, oh my gosh. It was very calm. But inside, I was just, and then I had to remind myself that really, we're good. And like 2 weeks, we had an offer. But
what's coming back?
Yeah.
The market is getting hotter and hotter. There's less and less homes. I mean, you look at all the numbers. Our market is not slowing down.
We are still in a housing shortage.
Absolutely.
So I thought, I kind of looked with the interest rates. I thought 2023 was going to be pretty slow. We had remodeled a house, and so I had joked and told my husband, we're not spending anything in 2023 because the market's going to slow. 2024, we're probably going to get back to a 2018, 2019 market. And January and February were kind of on spot. It was pretty slow, and March just hit, and I know I'm not the only one. We've just been running.
Right.
I mean, the market is just, and even with the interest rates. And of course, one of the things with clients is that you have to remember that, interest rates may be high now. If they go higher, then you kind of pat yourself on the back that you got a mortgage at 7.5%. If it goes down, you wait until it goes down. I think they say like at least 1%, but then you can refinance. There's a cost to that. But when you look at the, spread over the time, then that usually works out. So I don't think that the interest rate has changed it as much as it has. We'll see today. Their government's looking at raising it again up possibly another 0.5%, which is like, it's kind of bad. You gotta hope that everything slows down, but you don't want your business to slow down.
Right. Yep.
So we're kind of in a.
Yeah, there's a couple things there though. The one of them is that you don't actually need, depending on how big your loan is and how much you need the interest rate to drop.
Right.
And then how much the costs are. So a full percent when they used to say that all the time, it used to it was when houses were $50,000, $60,000. Loans
Sure.
were small.
That's true.
Now you get a $800,000 loan, $700,000 loan. 1/4% could save enough money to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
You just have to look at it. That's part of what you have to do. And then the other thing, the feds are expected to raise it at quarter percent is probably what they'll do.
Mm-hmm.
They may do a half, but we're expecting it. But that's a federal fund rate, and that'll probably junk things up for the next week or two.
Little bit, yeah.
Right? Maybe not that long. And then we should see, I keep saying this, someday I'm going to be right? Eventually I'll be right. Rates, I still believe, are going to go down.
Yeah.
The inflation numbers are still there.
Right.
The lack of, I think that's going to be a big thing. I think it's why it's such a great time to buy a house right now. There's not as many people, in my opinion, as is going to be in the market in 4, 5, 6 months
Right.
when rates do come down.
Yes. Everybody's jumping on it. And
Yes.
I bought my first house in 1978 at 10%. And of course, when people were getting mortgages at, 2.8, 3%, people were like, and you still bought a house? I was like, yeah, because that's what the interest rate was.
Right.
We bought our first house. And then, 2 years later, or it was 19% for a mortgage. So then it was like, well, good thing we bought it at 10%. And so I tell folks that, hopefully we'll never get up to, hopefully that was historic. Hopefully we'll never see an 18, 19% mortgage again. But I said, you also have to remember that probably that 2.8 is probably historic too. And so kind of like the 100-year flood, if you're waiting to buy a house until you're going to get it at 2.8, 3%, all that money that you're spending on rent is going into somebody else's pocket.
And what's the interest rate you're paying on when you're renting?
Oh my gosh.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and especially around here, when you look in, if nothing else, Hamilton County, I just saw somebody on Facebook had a house for rent, and it was a 1-bedroom, 1 bath. I don't remember how many square feet, but it was $1,200 a month.
Wow.
And it was 1-bedroom, 1 bath.
I'm going to tell my wife we're going to rent our house
Yeah,
out.
I mean, it's just like, so now all of a sudden that, paying the higher interest is kind of like, ugh, wait a minute. And
Yes.
again, if the interest rate goes down, you can always refinance that and do that. So, and if you're a first-time home buyer, now's the perfect time to buy a house.
I agree.
There's not a bad time. And you just got to kind of jump in. And then if it goes up, you just kind of pat yourself on the back and go, weren't you smart? And if it goes down, then you can look into refinancing.
That's right.
So,
All right, so I'm going to ask my favorite question.
Uh-oh.
And what do you think your most memorable deal was?
Probably the most recent one. And I'm very big on confidentiality, so I don't ever share too much of anything. But I had folks that were looking for a very particular type of property, and we had been looking. They actually they did not have their house on the market, but we had a realtor contact us and say, hey, your house has, pretty much everything that my folks are looking for. Are you interested in selling? I told my folks, that would be pretty good. They were kind of downsizing, they were downsizing. And so they found temporary housing and with one of their kids. So we made that sale, and we were still looking for this kind of unicorn property. And I had somebody call up and say, hey, a client of mine saying, hey, I'm thinking about maybe selling because somebody stopped by and said they might be interested. And I said, okay, great. When are they interested in buying? Well, they have to sell their property. I said, oh, okay. And she described this property, which was exactly what my folks were looking for in the exact area. And that thing there were so many, again, when the right one comes along, the right one comes along. And so they've been in it for a couple of weeks now, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that's an awesome story.
That's going to be that's now my top story.
I can see why.
Yeah, everybody's smiling.
Isn't it weird how things just happen that way? They just work out.
The right one always comes along. It may be a week. Yeah, I had one client one time, and this was pretty much in my early years, and we walked through one house, and they were like, okay, I want to put an offer on. Of course, this was back before you had to make a decision in 10 minutes. And so I was like, well, I agree with you, but we still need to look at other houses. And they're like, no, I don't think so. I was like, I quick looked up. I took them to 2 other houses because I was just like, no, we really need to look at something else. Because just to make sure they were first-time home buyers, I didn't want it to be. I always used to say that somebody should look at a house 3 times before they put an offer in it. Of course, you have to remove the past 3 years. But because when you go in, it's kind of like young love. You have those rose-colored glasses on, especially first-time home buyers. And it's like, oh, my gosh, this is perfect. This is perfect. You go back the second time, all of a sudden now you see the cosmetic things and, oh, I'm going to want to paint that and I'm going to want to switch this out. And so then you're really, because this is a big investment. This is the biggest investment you've probably made so far. And then the third time was like, okay, now, and how much are my monthly payments are going to be and what's the payoff and things like that. So, but at least 2 times you should. And I'm glad that we're kind of getting back into that a tad bit, although, we're getting back into multiple offers again. And
it's coming.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It's coming right back.
We're still in a housing shortage, yes. Especially I would say the more economical homes, because the builders, aren't building $300,000 houses anymore.
No.
So all of those buyers or all of those homeowners that have those 350 or below homes, those are going to hold their prices no matter what the interest rate's going to do, because builders aren't building those around anymore.
I do like that you told people to go see a house multiple times, not just for the same reasons, but my realtor did the same thing, and I'm glad she did, because we go check out a couple, because you look at it during the day, mostly everybody's at work. We went by there at night one time, and cars all over the roads. Yeah. I mean, like parked next to, not in driveways, and I'm like, I don't want to live in a house where I have to dodge people's cars
and your driveway.
Yep, and you're worried about some kid just popping out or something like that. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that every time.
I like to tell my folks that when you find the houses, when I do up a search, and now you drive through those neighborhoods. So back when I was first buying houses, I would talk to them. We didn't have the internet search, and so you'd go in and I'd say, okay, here's what I want. Give me a list of the houses. Okay. And then I'll drive around and then I'll tell you which ones I want to go see. And I had a couple realtors who were like, oh, no. Here, I'll take you. It's like, there's no need, because I'm going to know if I want to live on that street or I want to live in that neighborhood. Just because, I don't know, there's like 4 pink houses and I don't want to live where there's pink houses. Or like you said, all of a sudden there's a lot of cars on it. Or, when I had young kids, if all of a sudden it looks like everybody's 85, that's not what I want to, or something's a long ways away from a school and I really want to be close to one. And so I always encourage that too. It's like, don't just look online, that you need to go and drive through. Is that the community that you want to live in? Because every neighborhood or community has their own feel to it. And pictures online are great. And I'm one where I'll never have a listing go live without pictures, because it's true. People make their initial decision that way, but you really still have to have the feel of the neighborhood. You could love a house, but then all of a sudden you go to the neighborhood and it's not for you.
And pictures, I go to a lot of car auctions, okay? And you walk up to a car, you're 25, 30 feet away, and you look at it, you go, man, that is a beautiful car. Yeah. And you walk up to it, and you go, this isn't such a great car. This car is a piece of junk.
Yeah.
And you look at the pictures beforehand. Pictures show you the basics. They do not show you the detail of a house.
Right.
Or, so it's really important you have great pictures.
And that's what the photographer that I use, I love, because he takes very realistic photographs. So nothing is, I love it when you think that family room must be about a 60 by 60 room, and you get in and it's more like a 10 by 10.
Right.
And when you walk in, it's like, wait a minute, what? What is this? So
it gets at the end, but it doesn't help sell the house.
Yeah, and that's probably the good and the bad, is initially you've got to have those pictures online, because if everybody's first thought, if there's no pictures, oh, what's wrong with that house? And a lot of agents, it'll be pictures are coming, but the next day when somebody's flipping through, all they remember is that they didn't like 123 Apple Street. They don't remember that it was like, oh yeah, pictures aren't going to be posted until today. And so that's why I always say we're not going live until we've got pictures. And if my photographer gets hit by a bus and we were supposed to go live tomorrow, we're probably not going live tomorrow. I got to find another photographer.
Keep him away from the bus.
So if somebody's looking to buy, sell, or even just talk about real estate, or go on one of these nice trips you always like to go on, how would they get in contact with you?
So the best way is just give me a call at 317-698-0229. That's always the best one. Call me, send me a text, I've always got my phone. Or send me an email at wendyg@talktotucker.com. WENDYG@TALKTOTUCKER.com.
Perfect. And to get a hold of Ian or I, go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com. Or you can give us a call at 317-672-1938. That's 317-672-1938. And please follow us for more Indy's Real Estate Gurus.
And reminder, if you have any friends, family, or coworkers looking to buy, sell, refinance, let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you. Wendy, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on.
It was a great experience. Thanks
you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Branch NMLS number 33041. Rick Rittman's NMLS number 664589. Ian Arnold's NMLS number is 1995469. Equal housing opportunity. Some restrictions apply.